My name's Nate, and this is Heavy Pedal Garage. This is the channel where you can see this 1975 Firebird come back to life. So to date, we've of course done all the body work and moved all the way through the processes up through paint. So where we are now is moving into the paint correction phase. I've got some sags that I need to take care of. The orange peel is minimal. If you guys missed the paint videos, go back and check that out. This stuff laid down really nice. It's the Urachem High Solids Glamour Clear. But I did get some dust in here, shooting in a dirty garage, and we need to take care of those sags. And I do want it to have a nice finish, so we're gonna take care of that orange peel as well. So what you're gonna get in this video is seeing someone who is brand new to cutting and buffing. I've never done this before, never touched a buffer in my life. So I'm gonna walk through what I'm thinking and what I'm learning as I'm trying to experiment with this process and get this paint laid out. So I've been reading and doing some research and of course watching just a ton of YouTube videos, and the first thing I want to do is show you the materials that I'm going to use. And the best thing that you can do when you're picking your system is to go to the manufacturer's website and read about all their different products. I know Maguire's, which is what I'm using, has a bunch of different products. It's overwhelming to look at all of the different compounds and polishing materials that they have and try to pick it out. But if you go to their website and kind of read through, take your time, you'll find the right product that's going to meet your needs. So let me get you in here and I'll show you the system that I'm using and some of the products. I'm just going to give you a rundown here. 1000 grit sandpaper. I'm using a marker to kind of mark my spots that need extra attention. Moving to 2000 and then 3000. This is a Trizac paper that's really sweet. Now as far as moving into the buffing and polishing stage, I'm using a Maguire system. I chose the 110, 210 because it seems to cater itself to the DA, and also it is professional line, which means it's body shop safe. So the reason I picked that is because here in Heavy Pedal Garage, I am doing all my body work and painting. So when this says professional, that means there aren't any silicones or any other chemicals in there that may impact your paint process and give you fish eyes and all of that stuff. So since it's all done in one garage, I chose the professional. I'm working with brand new paint and need something a little more aggressive to cut through. So I'm gonna start with the 110, move to 210. And then after doing some research and watching videos, of course, I chose the Deep Crystal Carnauba Wax. I started with these pads. All of these were like $15 on Amazon. And of course they move through the different grits. I wrote on them, you know, you got your in process here with a fine buffing, and then, you know, your cutting is going to be your harder, coarser. However, after watching some Maguire's videos, and I did experiment with these, I ended up deciding to go with what they were recommending, which is these microfiber cutting discs. I can tell you I've been playing around a little bit. I think these are okay for a new guy. For me, no worries, they work. But once I switched to these, things really started coming together for me. Moving on. This is a basic sunlight flashlight, I guess, and it mimics natural colors. It helps you see imperfections and swirls in your paint. And this was $40 from Harbor Freight. So great investment. I compared flashlight to this, and this definitely makes a difference and allows you to see a lot more. The buffer I chose, again, a Harbor Freight deal. This is about $100 right now. I think with the coupon is like 89, 85. But this is the long throw. It's a DA, it's not rotary. I chose a DA because it is safer than a, you know, straight rotary buffer from what I can tell. And since I'm very new, if you're gonna spend the money, right? The difference in cost to step up to this long throw DA wasn't too bad. So just some other peripheral stuff that you're gonna want. Of course, some microfiber towels. You're gonna want quite a few of those as you move through the process to wipe things off and not create scratches. Bucket water for wet sanding, some spray bottle set up with water and some glass cleaner just to clean stuff off. And what I decided to do is work on these small parts, because if I mess them up, I figured if I cut through, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to just resand and paint and clear. Did not want to start on the car, because if I cut through, not knowing what I'm doing, it's going to be a lot bigger job to make that right. However, I can tell you that with 2 nights after work and probably a couple hours yesterday, I was able to get this dialed in. And look at this. I mean, it looks really good. There's a few places where I might have to do a little more work, but as the process goes, it's pretty straightforward to just refine the areas that you need. So we're going to get started on the trunk area here, as well as the rear part of the quarters. And really, the other reason that I wanted to start with the spoiler and the valence was not only if I screwed them up I could paint easy, but also I want to get these pieces off of the stand and get them back on the car. I just feel like I'm at a risk leaving those on the stand, you know, just a disaster waiting to happen, get knocked over or whatever. So we're going to start back here, and my goal short term is to get this all buffed out so I can put the spoiler on. I always find it handy to have a nice little work cart that you can wheel around so that you're not walking all over your garage trying to set stuff down or find different things. So first thing I want to do is get this cleaned off. We definitely don't want dust and debris on here that we could be rubbing into the paint. That would be defeating the purpose, right? Got it cleaned off. Got my bucket here with water and sandpaper and all that good stuff. So since this really isn't too bad, I know that my Maguire's 110 supposedly takes out sanding scratches down to 1200 grit. So really what I'm trying to do is stay above 1200. Gives me a better shot at getting rid of scratches, but I can tell you that in some of the rougher areas I've dropped down to 1000. Now if your paint is really rough, I've seen people on the web here on YouTube's, you know, they're going down 600-800. You know, I'm just not willing to go that far, and plus my paint laid out pretty well. So what I've been starting with is I've been trying to hit about 1500, and as far as a block, I think you want to start with something hard. I started using just kind of this soft, squeegee kind of block, and I wasn't able to cut through and level up as well. So we're just going to use 1500 to start. And again, I've got 1000 in there all the way up to 3000. So if I find it's not cutting, I can switch my paper. If I come into like a dust nib or something, I can take a smaller piece of paint stirring stick and just hit that little nib with 1000 or whatever. So that's it. I got my spray bottle for water to keep things moist. Moving along, and we're just going to knock this down. So we'll see how it turns out. So just like every step in this process, you basically want to take the piece that you're working on and divide it into workable sections, quadrants, whatever. So I'm just kind of taking like a 1 foot wide swath of the entire trunk, and that's kind of where I'm focusing before I move on. And you can feel it. You know, you can feel when you hit a dust nib, you can see it, but really what will happen here is when we're done with this pass, we'll be able to dry it off and we'll be able to see, just like when we're block sanding, you'll be able to see the highs and lows and figure out where you're going to focus. So I think we're about done with our first pass. I know it's not going to be where I need to be, but I'm going to stop there and we're going to wipe it down and see where we ended up. Okay, so 1500 grit. You can see after just one pass, minimal effort, I was able to start getting it knocked down. So this to me says that I could drop down to 1000 or rougher and probably move through it a little faster, but I'm okay taking my time. And again, I don't want those really coarse scratches. So you can see the dust nibs that I'm going to need to focus on. and you can see the areas where I didn't quite break through and need a little more work, and then some of the orangey peely areas as well. So also, I'm not gonna sand down here. I'm just gonna buff this. It's gonna be under that spoiler, so why waste all that time? It'll all blend together. And the other thing I'll add with these coarser grits, I'm really trying to stay away from the edges. I don't want to get too close to those edges. When I move into the finer grit, I'll go ahead and hit those. So I'm going to take some time here and knock this down with the 1500, and then I'll bring you back. So that was about 5 passes, maybe 10 minutes worth of work. So we're just going to squeegee it and wipe it and see where we are. And I can already tell you that I'm going to have to hit it again just because I'm seeing orange peel. But the cool thing is I put 4 coats of clear on here, so I feel pretty comfortable with being able to sand through this. And you know, you're seeing this white milky water come off of here. That's the clear coat. And I suppose if I start to see any of the Merlot pearl coming through, I know I'm in trouble. Okay, so yep, you still see some orange peely through here. Still haven't broke through these little nibs that need to be handled. It's getting closer. And then up here I could really do a little more work. I still see some shiny, but for the most part it's coming along. So we're going to do another, I don't know, 4 or 5 passes and see how that looks. So after that round, you can see that the panel is pretty much leveled. I'm not seeing a whole lot more orange peel, maybe around the edges a little bit, but I am seeing some flakes of dust that I'll need to take care of. So what I'll do now is just kind of focus in those areas where I'm seeing the dust. I'm going from the bottom to the top so that I don't cover up where I need to work, and I'll be able to see it. So I'll hit those dust nibs, and then I'll probably carefully work around the edges again, and that should get us ready for the next grit. I've got that sag kind of busted out. I've got most of the orange peel taken care of. I am leaving a little bit of orange peel here to kind of act as a guide coat. And I think we're ready to switch to grit. I feel like it's all leveled using that hard paint stick. So I am going to go ahead and switch to my squeegee block. A little bit more flexible, a little more surface area. And I should be able to run through the grits here and get this pretty much ready to start with our first stage of compound. So let's get that done. Okay, so I'm moving right along here, but like I said, guys, I'm bringing you along for the first time. You're getting to see my experience as I figure out my process here, which for just about anything you do on this car, you can watch a billion videos and read all you want and watch other people do it in real life. But what it boils down to when you're actually doing it, there's going to be parts of this process that work for you and parts that don't. And you just got to play around a little bit. You know, the end result is what matters. Going from point A to point B, there's obvious ways to do it right, but there's variations within how you do it. So I'm modifying my process here. I got everything sanded with 3000 grit by hand, and I'm tired. Guys, If you're doing this work, you know what I'm talking about. You put it on, you sand it off. You put it on, you sand it off. I've done a lot of hand sanding on this car. I've been leery of using power tools, power sanders. I've wanted to go slow first time through this and block everything out and make sure it's right. But I'm tired. So I bought this nice Bauer Orbital DA, and what I ended up doing is going to town and I bought a 3000 grit sanding disc for it. I hit that trunk lid once and I'm like, oh man, this is the way to go. You watch like Sprayway and he's doing his buff jobs that turn out great. And one of the things he talks about is when it's cut, you cut it with a block, it's flat. So then after that, hitting it with a DA, interface pad, you know, you're really not going to unflatten it. It's already flat. So I'm going to try it out, guys. Bear with me. We're going to use some of these different grits on this DA. I'm going to cut it by hand with a block first. I'm probably going to go back to my DuraBlock and see if that's cutting it instead of that paint stick. And then we're going to work through the grits with the DA. So I hope I don't cut through. Cross your fingers for me. And let's check it out. Not putting too much water on there, just enough to lubricate it a little bit. So here's my line right here. I just did this section. So you can really see, some of these vertical here, they're not here. So this is working out really good. I'm gonna go ahead and take care of the rest of this with this 3000 and a little bit of wet and see where we're at. I'll probably be pretty happy with that and go ahead and do this and the other quarter, and then we should be ready to break out the buffer. Alright, so we've gone over all of this section I'm doing a couple times, maybe 3 times with the 3000 grit. And I'm going to take my Braun Sunlight here, and this is where this thing's really handy. So as I'm looking, I can still see some scratches. And I actually tried to get those out with the 3000 grit. And it's just not cutting it. So I'm going to go ahead and drop down to like 2000 grit on that DA and see if I can't get those cleaned out. Okay, well, I think I got my process dialed in. So to start, I identify my orange peel and my nibs that need to be taken care of. I'm going to wet sand with a hard block. I was using a paint stick as well, but I'm going to start with whatever grit seems to cut through it. In a few places on this paint, I had to back down to 800 grit, but mostly I hand sanded it, blocked it out nice and flat with 1000 grit. Now I was doing a little hand sanding up through the other grits, but guys, I switched over to that DA. I got me an interface pad. I went to 2000 on the DA and got everything with that. Few passes, and then I switched to this 3000 grit and did my final pass with that. This was very slow as I was trying to figure out what I'm doing, but now that I got the machine involved and I got my process dialed in, I guarantee you that the rest of this car is going to go a heck of a lot smoother. So we're going to get this cleaned off really good. I'm going to like swap out all of my microfiber towels. I don't want any of that stuff around this car because it's got that sanding grit on it. I'm going to get new microfiber towels and get ready for my compound process. I'm going to start with my Maguire's cutting discs, and they come in a pack of 2. So basically I'm going to keep one for the compound part of the process, which is the Maguire's 110, and then I'm going to keep this other one for the 210, which is just a little bit less aggressive. So the first thing I've found is helpful, and again, I'm just sharing everything that I've seen on YouTube here, but so far it's worked for me. So I'm going to prime this pad and just get it rubbed in pretty good. And then what I've kind of found is as you're working, it's all about pressure, appropriate pressure, and the appropriate amount of compound. When I first started doing this, I was just putting it on there, and you know, to me it was like the more the better. But actually, as this stuff works, as it starts wearing in, is when it really starts to do the job. So now that that's primed up, I'm just going to put 3 dots. Okay. And then we're ready to go. Got my clean microfiber towel, and we're going to hit the panel. So we're going to set this down around 4. And then for this first pass, I do want a lot of material on there because that's where I'm going to try to work out a lot of these scratches. So spread it around. And again, it's all about pressure, so read the bottle. What the bottle says is moderate pressure to start for your first passes, and then you lighten up. Okay, so that was 2 passes with moderate pressure. Now I'm just going to work that in with kind of a light, medium to light pressure, and then we'll wipe it down, see where we're at. Cool. So what I've found is this 210 really does a good job, even just by itself, you know. I'm not going to leave it just at the 210, but it has taken out all of those scratches with just a few passes. Now I'm going to use my Bauer light gun here, and you can really see the pearls come through and see any dull, hazy areas or scratches. Now I am seeing like some spider web scratching and a little bit of halo, so a little bit of haze kind of right in here. I think a lot of that could come out with the next step, which is the 110, but I'm going to go ahead and hit this again, especially right in here. Probably go over this one more time and then work, you know, kind of down through here. But check out that light gun. Makes a big difference. Okay guys, so the lighting is really key. I've got a light back here behind, and that is kind of lighting up the panel. But once you've worked that material down and it gets to where it's just a slight gloss, on the push it makes it hazy, but on the pull you can actually see the paint. So on that pull, I'm really able to use my light behind me and see where the scratches are that I need to work. So like this. Now I can look, and now it's hazy, working them out. So for me as a new guy, I can honestly say that this Maguire's 110 and 210 with this long throw dual action has been pretty easy to work with. For me, it's been a relatively smooth learning curve. So I do the work and I kind of fumble through it, and then I'll go back and watch some more videos and fine tune my process. So I'm just going to keep going here, and again paying attention to my pressure and how much material's on the panel. It really seems to work really well when there's, you know, less material on the panel than more. Or at least I can see what it's doing and it's working fine. So we're going to keep going and finish up everything that I've got cut, and then you know, replicate it for the rest of the car. So out with the good lighting comes good vision. And what I found was yesterday when I was sanding this with the DA, I broke through in a few places. Right there and right here. And then also along the inside edge of this trunk gap. So on the trunk gap, when I peeled my tape off, I had kind of a rough edge from where the tape peeled. So in order to sand through and get this all smooth, it broke through. Now how I'm going to try to fix this, which I've already done. I was so mad when I found it, because I say be careful of the edges, be careful of the edges. Well, guess what? They're right! But what I did was I took some paint and I robbed these little brushes from the kids' art supplies, and I just took and dabbed a little bit of paint where it was broke through. And then this is just a cap that I put some foil in. I took my clear coat, it's 2-to-1. So I have these pipettes that I bought, I think from Hobby Lobby, for doing some airbrush type stuff. But this is 2-to-1, right? So this isn't my tip, saw it. I think Kevin Tetz showed me this one. 2-to-1, so I did 20 drops with 10 drops of activator. So you don't need a big mixing cup to make this happen. And then I took the same type of brush and just dabbed it on where I broke through paint and clear to cover that up. So hopefully that'll work. And then the other thing I'm trying is I haven't sanded this door edge down. Like I said, when I sanded the trunk, I broke through because it was kind of rough. So I went ahead and dabbed on some extra clear coat here. Maybe that'll help keep me from breaking through that, but I'm going to be a little more careful here. So that's how that's working. And since I cut through on those edges, I'm now going to do some of these small parts, like right here. When I'm doing the sanding, I'm not going to use the DA. I'm just going to go back to doing it by hand. With this video, I really wanted to bring you along for the ride and what I'm going through, because there are plenty of professional videos out there on how to actually do this. Go watch them for the, the detailers, the painters that know how to do this stuff. But what I wanted to give you is the first time experience of what you might go through as you're trying to learn to do this too. So stick around to the end so that you can maybe learn from my mistakes and not have to go through all these troubles. But stick around, we're gonna find out how this goes. So got the first round of compounding done. I think I'm gonna stop there. It looks really good the way it is. When I put my sunlight on it, you can see little kind of spider web micro scratches, and I do have some imperfections that I'm gonna have to resand and just kind of spot treat over the car. But I'm gonna stop here because I figure I still have to assemble. I gotta put things together. It's gonna be out here in the dusty garage for a while. So I'm gonna wait to do the final buffing compound as well as the waxing until it's a little further along and ready to be on the road. So what did I learn? Well, I learned careful around the edges. You hear that. And with this DA buffer and the pads I was using, I had no real worries around the edges. I was careful. But the only places that I burned through were with sanding. So when I was trying to sand out some nibs, I hit a spot on the bumper that went through. There's a spot on the front fender and the rear quarter, and then along the door edges. But that was all with sandpaper, and I was able to touch them up with dabs of paint, followed by dabs of clear, and then lightly sanded those out. So, it'll work, it'll do. So just be careful with your sandpaper. Now, it was a lot of work, okay? So if you're about to take on a whole car cut and buff, be ready for me, it was 3 to 4 weekends and a few evenings using my free time. And I mean, I didn't just putz around either. I came out here and I worked for hours at a time to get this done. So it does take time to cut and buff all this stuff out. So to everybody that commented on whether I should work on the Blazer or work on this car, greatly appreciate it. Y'all captured my mental state, which is all over the board as far as what I should do next. But I felt like it's cold, it's getting colder, and a wet sand, I didn't want to be dipping my hands in a bucket of water in 30-degree temperatures, so I went ahead and moved on with this. I'm still thinking about that Blazer, but man, now that I see this thing buffed out, I just want to keep on moving on it. I hate leaving that Blazer set, but you know what? This thing needs to be on the road. It's screaming. I get this on the road, then I can start working on that. We'll see. I'm all over the place on that one. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I really do. I wouldn't be doing this without you guys. First, I wanted to just document the car and have some videos up on YouTube to kind of have as a keepsake forever. And something I could look back on. But as this channel grows, as my family with you guys grows, I feel like I'm happy to be here and provide tips and motivation for you guys. So we'll keep on working. Catch me next time and see what's in store for this 1975 Firebird restoration. I hope y'all have a good one.